So here in the Isle of Man, we've got the head of the BMA Council, who's come over. As it turns out, you were coming anyway, but clearly your whole reason for being here now must be focused on what you've been hearing from this tribunal for Dr Ranson. You've made some incredible statements here about the shape of things here in the Isle of Man for people, in the NHS system and Noble's Hospital, I presume. It's not good. In fact, it was damning, really, wasn't it? That here in the Isle of Man, the health service is not fit for service.
Well, I'm not sure that we're talking about the health service not being fit for service. We're talking about the culture within the health service not being one that is conducive to providing safe, high-quality services. You cannot have a situation where doctors and other staff are afraid to speak up when they see that something's wrong, and that when someone does speak up, that they have their career destroyed as a result.
So what have you been hearing? Because you've been talking to doctors, haven't you?
Yes. So I've obviously been involved with Dr Ranson and talking to her about her case, which is so disturbing that really this goes beyond the Isle of Man, and I will need to raise this with UK government and the Crown Dependencies Minister, because it shows systemic bullying throughout the health service that probably goes beyond that into government. And there are a number of failings which I'm not sure that the Isle of Man, tasked with trying to review what has gone on and what is still going on, would be able to do on its own. So you really need to have an independent view of what has happened. But what was more distressing was listening to about 60 doctors, all of the universal view that they couldn't speak out for fear of either being reported or bullied or referred to the General Medical Council. Now, that's a terrible state to be in.
Am I right in the BMA UK had to look at this case particularly because it's outside of the UK? Then you just take it on. When you looked at it, was it easy to make that judgment that this was something very, very serious?
Yes, not only that it was particularly serious, but it had wider implications for the whole of the UK. Doctors traditionally have found it really difficult to raise concerns. Bringing a successful whistleblowing case is difficult to do legally. By the time you are a whistleblower, the system has failed. Actually, the intervention should be before you become a whistleblower. And it means that the rest of the UK is on notice now that if doctors raise serious concerns, they cannot be overruled managerially. I found it absolutely unbelievable that a medical director was banned from passing on concerns to ministers. That just sounds completely bizarre to me.
And is this a culture that goes all the way to the ministers and the chief minister here? Should they be considering their positions? Well,
that's what I'm being told. You need to have an independent public review that puts you in a position where those ministers can be examined, can be taken to and held to account, because that's what's not happened here. People have not been held to account for the wrongdoings that have taken place.
And the question I said earlier to you in the general pool, 10 years ago this was also going on, and there's this massive amount of problems, it appears, in the system, and this is not, I know it's not just the Isle of Man, because you said it's going on elsewhere, but how do you rate what you've seen here in context with everywhere else that you cover? Is it bad?
It's probably one of the worst cases that I've seen of systemic So widespread worry amongst a medical workforce about being able or not able to speak up. And that has implications for the future, and it needs to be sorted out urgently. And the BMA has offered to support the doctors on the island to improve the health services and improve that culture. Now, there are pockets within the island who genuinely want to change. And I've met, for example, with the interim medical director today, who says some incredibly positive things and has the right strategy to get there, has the trust of the medical team. But you have to engage your medical staff, and until you do that, you won't make improvements.
Of course, this has implications for people coming to work here in the profession. I understand, speaking to someone in the know, you black box certain job applications in the journals, which indicates subtly to a doctor that you wouldn't approve of them taking up that position. Is the Isle of Man black boxed now?
No, I'm not aware of that at all.
Well, would you recommend the Isle of Man to people to come here to work in the health industry?
The Isle of Man should be the perfect place to work.
But it's not.
Dr Ranson came here believing that this was a health system where health is controlled, the money is controlled. It's not dependent on a UK government funding or not funding. It's small enough to be able to run healthcare in a sensible, compassionate manner. And she found anything but. So, it is down to the people of the Isle of Man to decide what kind of health service they want, the culture that is underpinning it, and to make it happen. The Isle of Man should be a marvellous place to work.
You couldn't recommend it at the minute to people to come here to work in the health industry?
Well, you've got some really good people here to work with.
Yeah.
All right? It's not going to change unless people come in. It's up to the Isle of Man to persuade people that this is the right place to come.
And you've been listening. Do you think the concern will get out to the people that matter, which is the management and obviously the members of Parliament here in Tynwald, and obviously the health minister? Should he go? I'll ask you, but
Well, I think what you have to do is you have to ask your politicians and managers to open up to really wanting to know what is wrong and listening to the frontline staff, but listening with a genuine interest and intent to change things. It's very easy to become parochial. It's a very small place. There are a lot of vested interactions. You may want to look at some of those because it's a very complex web of decision making that goes on. In Dr Ranson's case, we have seen that web has conspired to end her career. Could
you believe it yourself when you found out what had gone
on? I couldn't. You couldn't write it, could you? But sadly, this is not an isolated case. What has been important here is that this has come to the public attention and that it's not allowed to drop.
And what sort of person have we lost in Dr Ranson by this?
She was a committed doctor, believed passionately in making a better health service for the Isle of Man. And that Isle of Man has destroyed her career, and that is appalling. And it's not just about being sorry, but there should be a commitment to make changes in the future.
And what sort of eye will you be keeping on the Isle of Man from now on?
Well, we're going to be supporting the local doctors here, so we will be coming backwards and forwards. I'm going to come back to the island to meet more people because of what it says. It's a barometer for how the NHS in general across the UK has been. In theory, it should be easier to sort out. I'm looking forward to making progress with both the Manx Care Management, Department of Health and ministers.
Just on that, just finish, we separated off the DHSC and that we created Manx Care. Was that something that you thought was a good idea or bad, or have you not had to to think about that one, because they put it at arm's length, basically. The government moved health to arm's length.
Well, if you're going to have an arm's length organisation, then you've got to empower it and give it the resources to do the job. That organisation then has to function effectively. The lines of communication, openness, transparency appear to have been lacking throughout the system. So, you can make as many bodies as you like, but if the underlying culture hasn't changed, then you've not really achieved what you set out to achieve. So, the future is there to play for. It is your future to alter. I've said that I'm going to see how far we get over this next year, and I've made a promise to come back repeatedly until we have made that change.